Hello everyone and welcome to episode 10 of the Housecast podcast. Got a bit of a bumper edition this evening. We've got more guests than we know what to do with. We've got the usual three, myself, Joe Martin and Jez. We also have two esteemed previous Lowerhouse captains, Finchy and Gary Morehouse. We'd asked for questions to put to those two, and somebody asked for Finchy to run through his entire philosophies on captaincy. But unfortunately, Apple said that a 30-second podcast wouldn't be acceptable, so we've had to shelve that idea. We've also got one other special guest who joins us from Australia. You might know his name. He played a little bit of cricket for us back in 2005, and since then he's had a reasonable career. He's played for Victoria, he's played Test cricket for Australia, he's played cricket for Leicestershire, Delhi Daredevils and RCB in the IPL. He's now assistant coach of the Australian Test side. He coached in the 100, he coached in the IPL. We're joined by Mr. Andrew McDonald. Hi everybody, how are we all doing?
Well, I was okay until that introduction, Joe, but all good, thank you.
Solid introduction on Finchy's behalf. Solid introduction.
Excellent. We're going to major on Andrew, but obviously the others are going to chip in as well. Andrew, thanks very much for giving us a bit of time today. What are you up to at the moment? I know you should be probably in India at the moment, but what's life like for Andrew now there's no cricket?
I think it's a little bit like everyone else, but thanks for having us on, and thoughts with everyone out there in the world that's obviously embarking upon a different look. But had my first competitive hit on the golf course today and royally failed there. So had 29 points, and I hear that you may have shot the lights out at some point in time over this weekend. So that sort of got dripped there to me. So yeah, but it's pretty much golf now that it's opened up, and a bit of homeschooling, and just a bit of time at home, which has been pretty good. Life on the road sort of doesn't allow much time at home, so it's been good to take the opportunity.
Should you be at the IPL now? Is that where you would be?
Yeah. Generally speaking, April, May, IPL time, and then outside of that, clearly international cricket. And it was really looking forward to the 100 ball. Coming to visit Finchy. It's one of the things that you put on your calendar annually to get to England and drop in and see how Finchy's going. So unfortunately, we won't be able to do that this year.
When was that scheduled to start, the 100?
That was going to be, I think it was July 17, the kickoff date, through to August 15. So unfortunately, with what's happening over there, it doesn't look like too much domestic cricket, but Finchy will be able to give you a whole lot more information, sort of being high up in the pecking order in the ECB. Might have a little bit of inside information for the podcast.
High up in the pecking order. He makes a tea, doesn't he? That's what I've heard.
I've not even progressed to that level yet, Joe, if I'm being honest.
I know that people probably on the podcast won't be able to see, but there's a strategically placed bike in the background of Finchy there. Is that sort of like the bookcases that the intellects have? He's a fitness manager?
Any response?
At least mine gets used, Macca.
Oh. Ow! Very catchy.
Got a bite, Earl. Got a bite. Here you go.
Yeah.
Ordered! Send Morehouse to save the house! Come on, the house!
Andrew, you played for us in 2005. You had a little foray into the league the year before with Haslingden in 2004. What can you remember about how the Lowerhouse move came about?
So signed with Haslingden in 2004. I'm not sure how many games I've played there. Someone probably will have the numbers there for us, but I think it might have been a handful of games. Suffered an injury, I think it was against Deep Lanks, playing for Haslingden. Went home real early in that season. And then I thought, that's it, never going to come back to league cricket. Played another season in Victoria when I got home. And then I think Lowerhouse had a professional pull-out late for the season in 2005. I'm not sure whether it was maybe Ryan Harris or...
It was Ryan, yeah.
It was Ryan Harris, yeah. So he was meant to come back and pulled out late. I think probably on the back, he had probably a bumpy year, or he might have been moving states or something was going on. And Ranners rang me, David Rann, and sort of just put forth a proposition. In my head, I wasn't really that keen to come back. And he just literally, I think it was probably over sort of 3 conversations, convinced me that it may be a good idea to have another crack at league cricket. A lot of my team members of Victoria also had successful forays into Lancashire League, which then helped them with their first-class career. So Jason Armberg had been there, Brad Hodge. So those guys spoke positively of it. And took the leap to Lowerhouse for the season of 2005. I think it was real late in the piece too. I reckon it might have been a sort of February deal. Might have even been early March. So it all happened really, really quickly. And thankfully I took that option. Probably the best thing I did in my cricketing career.
Am I right in saying that you sub-pro'd in the league before that? Was it for Enfield in 2003?
2003 sub-pro. We're on an emerging players tour. Yeah, correct, for Victoria. And we got released for, I think it was 4 or 5 days, and we all sort of headed up to Lancs League and took up some sub-proing opportunities. Might have been sort of late in the season, late July, I reckon it might have been. So a few spots opened up with professionals moving home, and bowled 25 straight from one end. So that was a really good experience. I think we batted second. I couldn't walk, so
you didn't bat. I've just got it up now. You didn't bat in the second dig, but you bowled three for 80 off 25. Yeah. I think you bowled more overs in that game for Enfield than you did for Haslingden, I think.
Is Finchy the resident stats man today? Is he? You might be right though. I think you could be right.
Excellent. So if you were used to bowling 25 overs a game, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure used to would be the right terminology, but forced to.
Yeah, forced to. I mean, the rules in the league have changed now. You can't have a professional. I think 17 is the max now.
Was that after you were in 2005 as captain? I think they might.
Yeah.
Closely.
Yeah, because there were a lot of spinners that year who were bowling a lot of overs, so they had to change the rules. I mean, it's interesting you mention that because we had the year before you came, we had a New Zealander called Peter Fulton. Now, albeit he did bowl a bit quicker than you, but he actually bowled more overs than you.
Not hard.
So and he doesn't moan about it. So I think we need to keep a bit of perspective. What about the other pros in the league that you were here that year? Can you remember any of them?
Jog my memory.
I'm going to fire a name at you. Murali Kartik.
Yep, at Rami.
He pro'd at Rami. We've had a story from Tiffer about him, which I remember, of course. I just wondered if you had any recollection of that. He was a bit fiery. Tiff had got under his skin a little bit. And I think whilst you might have been at the other end, there was a shoving match. Do you remember it? Have you come across him again since in your career in cricket?
Yeah, I've come across him a hell of a lot since. Clearly in the IPL. He may have been in county cricket when I was at Leicester, I think, for Somerset. I reckon he played at Somerset during that time. So what I remember of that is, so Tiff batted at 3. It was sort of late-ish in the season from memory. Tiff was batting at 3. Well, that's probably another story. There's probably selection or captaincy decisions. I'm not sure how that sort of operates, but we'll get to that as the podcast goes on. But he sort of hit the train track. He sort of cow-cornered, slogged him. He didn't get many runs in that game. I think he might have got, how many did he get?
10 or 11, something like that.
Yeah, including a 6, and it sort of got heated. And it was a big game. It was really probably the pivotal game of the season where the points was shift significantly. So there was a lot on the line. I think there was emotion. He really got him out, and I think it might have been LBW or something sweeping, and one of those ones where it took the umpire a little while to give the decision. I think this is from memory, and he ran and sort of got in his space, and it sort of played out from there. But at the end of the game, I remember sitting back I was having a beer. I'm not sure whether Murali was sitting down on the side and outside the club rooms, and both teams, played in good spirit. It got a little bit heated and motions balled over, but you expect that in a pivotal game for the title, pretty much. So Tipper's probably beat it up a little bit bigger than that, but that's sort of my recollection of it. Yeah,
that's pretty accurate. That's pretty as I remember it. Really, very good. There was another bit of a fallout in a game later on that season involving yourself and a senior member of our side, Pankaj Tripathi. We played a local derby against Burnley, which we won reasonably comfortably. Finch, I don't know if you remember that game because it was rearranged from a rained-off game where you got 120 that got chalked off, unfortunately.
I don't remember much about that, to be honest.
We beat them in the rearranged game, reasonably comfortable. But in the changing room after the game, Jez loves this story because he was predicting it was going to happen almost from ball one. There was a bit of a flare up in the changing rooms afterwards. Can you remember what sparked that? Can you remember anything about that incident at all?
Were you talking to Finch or were you talking to me?
No, you.
Okay.
You were the one who was firing most of the bullets.
No, I remember it. So we're chasing down a total. We performed really, really well, and we're on edge the whole time during the season because we had a reasonable start, a reasonable middle. There was sort of some pressure mounting. Never won the title, so clearly pressure. expectation was high on the back of the year before. We won the Cup in 2004. We had a really good team. And what I remember of Lowerhouse in 2005 was a really good team. And that was probably what flared up in that game was, just from a personal opinion, and it was just in the middle. I was batting the trip, and we're running hard between the wickets, and everything was on the line. And I just felt that at certain times that wasn't happening. That we weren't herring between wickets, and we had certain team expectations. And all I was suggesting to Trip was that we uphold those for the season. It was really, really important that if this is going to be a championship winning side, that we need to continue to push the whole way through and not let the opposition in. I think we won that game quite comfortably as well.
We did, yeah, we did.
I table it to Trip in the middle, and clearly, Trip wasn't too fond of the sort of feedback, and that happens in games, and probably through what spilled into the change room was probably not right for the collective team, and probably put you under the pump of the skipper. I do remember that you headed to the cubicle and shut the door, and had the sign on there for quite some time, and looking for the captain to have a debrief, but it was never forthcoming, so I'm not sure what happened after the game. But I think you removed yourself from there some sort of 90 minutes later and got in your car and drove home and texted the team later on. But yeah, it was quite heated. But as I said, those sort of things in the emotion of the season happen. I think sometimes it can be healthy. Look, I'm not sure that was healthy at that point in time. I'm not going to say that it was the right thing to do, but it was definitely emotional. I just felt as though the team couldn't be compromised in the way that we wanted to play throughout the season, and that was how I saw it at that point in time. Do I see that like that now? Probably not. You get a little bit older, a little bit wiser. I was only young at the time.
I think you say that, Macca, but I'm lucky. I'm not sure you are, that we've spent a bit of time together over the past few years, and you helped me out certainly in my career. But that epitomises what you are about. And I know we're going to come on to your coaching later, but it's about the team first rather than individuals within it. And I think on a reflection back, looking at that really shone through on that day. I remember taking you and Keeley out after that match. We went for a curry, and you were fuming, not about any individuals or what actually happened. It was just the fact that you were so passionate about, you wanted to win the league, and it was about the team and doing everything like that. And that's one of the things that really struck a chord with me. Is not necessarily the runs and the wickets, but it was I really want to get this league won for the rest of the team. And that's what kind of got us through. And it was an interesting dressing room for 10 minutes at the end.
I don't know, I wasn't there.
Exactly. Luckily, we had Blaise and Matt in there just to work things out, and I'd forgotten about that until you had talked about it on the podcast. To be honest,
Jez brought it up.
What game was it? Just out of interest, it struck me as a pivotal game as well, sort of like the Rammy one.
It was mid-July, and again, I don't know what you're doing. The thing I remember about that game is you batted Tiffer at 3, Joe, and I think we definitely bowled first, and I think that was the first time I bowled about 18 overs. Tiffer comes in, he suddenly decides his game's tip and run. So I'm in there for 10 overs with Tiffer. He runs me into the ground. And then obviously I think Macca, you get 50 and Blaise got some runs as well, I think.
I'll tell you why Tiffer ended up at 3, and I was going to blame the captain for that earlier, but I think I batted 3 in the first 4 games of the season, couldn't make a run. And the captain wanted to bowl a lot first, and he bowled me a lot of overs, and I found it really, really difficult just to really stand up at half-time and put the pads on. And we always tended to lose an early season. It was all right once Lee got into his stride and Finchy got into his stride, and it sort of unfolded like that. But early season is a bit of nip in the wicket. And, you're sort of in there at sort of 1 for 10 after, or what do you guys call it, 10 for 1. Yeah, and I couldn't walk. Cramped up in the game, and so that's why Tiff went to 3 from memory.
Yeah, problem with that argument, Mac, is you only bowled 12 overs that game, so it don't really stand up, does it?
No, not that game. No, I wasn't talking about that game. I was talking about early season.
2 lots of 6. I mean, how can you struggle with 2 lots of 6?
Yeah. Ryan never bothered about it, did he?
No.
He was good.
I mean, Ryan never complained, but he's in a wheelchair now, so,
Can't walk.
You're right. That was a game in July. The Rami game that we talked about earlier was more pivotal. That was like end of July, beginning of August, and it was us and them at the top of the league, and we overtook them, and they never got back in front of us after that game. Johnny Russell bowled them out. That was it in terms of the cricket that you had with us that I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, you had a month off in the middle of the season. I think you're on some sort of was it a holiday camp that you had in June?
It was called respite. I think it was called rest after the first sort of couple of months under your leadership. I think it was a made-up rest period for myself just to get the loads down.
Yeah.
But it was a Victorian tour. I'm not sure when it started. I think the T20 game against Hazzy was the last game I played, and then I headed off for about a month to it was called an emerging players tour where we travelled around and played against the counties, and so that's why I left for a month. And I think you got some good overseas prizes. And I think when I come back, I think you even referenced it to me across a pint of, I think it was Cronenberg I think you had on. I don't know whether you got any sponsors, but Cronenberg were on the bar back then, and you said, geez, we had some good pros in the time you were away. You're almost suggesting that it was best that I didn't come back. So, it all
motivational. I think you'll find motivational.
Okay. Getting the best out of the players.
That's
Macca,
yeah.
what was the story as to why you had to go home early?
My back packed in.
And how did you get found out about your back home?
I'm not sure. You might remember better, but I remember buying off.
Finchy must know. He must know, or else he would not be asking you these questions. He does not know the answer.
Yeah, so I think we played a game at Todd, and I dropped the catch off you, and you've never forgiven me. It was out of there's a brick building at the back there. Is it still there? They haven't knocked that down yet. But the brick building, it was very hard in first slip, and it cut. By that stage of the season, they weren't coming out very fast from Finchy, but got a bit of pace through and just somehow dropped it, and he's never forgiven me for that catch. But what I do remember is I bowled off spin in that game.
Yeah.
I think I got so I don't know whether we can run the numbers on that, but
you did. You got 6 for, but does the story not go that obviously we got a fantastic Lancashire League website, and it was on the hush that you were bowling off spin because he just wanted to protect you back a little bit. Was it? I forget who the coach was at Victoria back in the time, but it got back to him that it said on the Lancashire League website, on the Aussie McDonald bowling off spin, and you get this call, and then you get the curly finger to go back over to Australia because you've got a bit of a back niggle.
I think I had to divulge it. I was trying to keep it under wraps till that point in time. But I think by that stage we were pretty cosy that we may have had enough points to see us through. But you guys got to enjoy the spoils, and by the photographs, we celebrated it well.
We did.
I mean, and again, God bless his soul. Let's hope he's looking down on us and listening. You've got to take your cap off to Renners for some of the players he got.
Well, I don't know. So obviously, I wasn't there when these guys were there, but Fleggs, Matthew Mott, two really successful people now since. Obviously, all down to their experience at Lowerhouse. You got Macca,
Martin Van Jaarsveld.
You got Peter Fulton, who's the assistant coach at New Zealand now.
Ryan Harris.
Ryan. Not only are they good players, they're good people, aren't they?
I think we just got to the end of the cricket chat from Lowerhouse. There's a couple of other incidents I just wanted to mention. One about when you fell asleep in the park. Any recollection of that? Any recollection of the aftermath or what happened immediately before it?
I'm not sure that I did fall asleep in the park, but I mean the story's what are we? We're some sort of 15 years post, but I do remember my first night at the club. I can tell you that story if you need to know.
Go on, then.
It was a fast induction. Matt Hope greeted me. You might have been down. I think Johnny Russell was there. Finchy definitely wasn't there. Tiffer lived too far away. So there was a small gathering. Proceeded to get in around with Matty and probably consumed, definitely consumed, I think 6 pints last recollection in a roughly about 70 minutes. To which stage I tried to find my way home. I ended up getting home. I attempted to get to sleep. Not really familiar with the setup in the flat near the billiards hall there. I think it was on Padiham Road, I think from memory. And bounced off the bed, landed on the floor, and stayed there for the next 7 hours to wake up and not know what really was going on. But from that, I didn't really learn my lesson because we stuck in a couple of shouts with Matty post that. But that was my sort of first. If that's the park story that's sort of been shifted and potentially manipulated, then there was an altercation with alcohol. There was an altercation with Matthew Hope, to which Keely wasn't all that fond of, but nor was I either.
Fair enough.
In a fair state, and you were expecting me to train that week, which I didn't.
Club profits always recruit the pros fees over the bar, don't you? That's the aim.
Correct. That's it. You mentioned Keely there. There's another instance which I have done my research here. This is not just my own memory. I've asked virtually everybody at the club, and they all have said there's another instance where you might have had about 18 missed calls on your phone from Keely because you'd not come home when you were supposed to. You still didn't go home, so she gave up on the phone calls and actually turned up at the club to drag you home in her pyjamas.
Not dragged home. I think she was concerned for my welfare because she probably got Hope was still in the bar as well, so she knew how it ended before that.
Wonderful.
There was
character building, the Landry way.
Hooch, did you get blamed for that?
Probably. It sounds like I've got blamed for pretty much everything that's gone wrong. So yeah, why not?
You tend to find captains do any incident. The captain will do. I remember Charlie's mum dragging him out at Lane End after we went there after a rained-off game, and she gave me daggers for about 2 or 3 years afterwards. I mean, the fact he was 15 is irrelevant.
Finch, when you were captain, what did you get blamed for?
Lack of ability, lack of leadership skills, lack of people awareness, lack of tactical awareness, just total ineptitude, really. It's interesting because me and Dooch were talking about this during the week, and my recollection of my captaincy is that I did it for half a season, but apparently I did it for a full season and then packed in the season after about 10 games in.
Yeah,
it's not my finest hour. I'll be honest, I was a bit young. I think I was 23 when I took over captaincy, and obviously when you're following the Italian Adonis like Beneducci, you've not got much chance, have you? You've just won the Worsley Cup, you just won the league for the first time. Yeah, I was totally out of my depth. I'm not going to lie. You've just got to hold my hand up. What happens when you're captain? You have to think of other people, and I'm probably the most selfish, self-contained person you'd ever want to meet. So it's not going to work, is it? It's a recipe for disaster straight away.
Honest appraisal, Jonathan. Very honest. Obviously, you then go on to play cricket for back to Victoria. Played for Leicestershire in England and a bit in the IPL. But it's your coaching that we really wanted to just get into. For those that don't know, current Australian assistant coach, coach in the 100 for the Birmingham side. Finchy mentioned that they're playing pink. I don't know. Have you got a different colour to wear as coach?
It's the IPL team that plays in pink, isn't it, Andy?
Oh, is it? Sorry, right. Rajasthan playing pink. You're going to need a different colour there, aren't you, with your complexion? And
well, that's in the eye of the beholder.
Very good.
But true.
Peppa Pig.
Gary's got a question about coaching in sort of short periods of time. Go on, Gary. I'll let you ask it.
Really interesting to see how players have their gigs have changed over the years with going around to playing different countries in all these competitions more so than they ever would have toured with their own national sides. I just wondered how that panned out from a coaching aspect. Coaching possibly is something that you have different plans for, sort of medium and long term with sides, and when you're rocking up for a season or 2 or 3 months with a bunch of players, most of you're probably aware of or have played with before. I just wondered how that role as coach has had to evolve very quickly, with no real precedent or people who you can go back over time with and see how they did it.
Yeah, I think the landscape for everyone's changed, hasn't it? In the last decade, really, with the IPL franchise cricket coming in, we've seen the evolution in English cricket. 2003 was T20. Now, this year should have been the 100 ball. So there's a lot of franchise cricket out there. There's a lot of player movement. There's a lot of coach movement. So the landscape's definitely changed. And I suppose you don't really have a short, medium or long-term view as a coach. It's really opportunistic. It's a little bit like a player. You sort of go through the grades, for a young Lancastrian, you might play in the Central Lancs League, you might play in the Lancashire League. You step into second level in cricket, you get an opportunity for Lancashire, and then sort of it flows from there. So it really is people backing your ability as a coach or a player, giving you an opportunity, and then it sort of progresses from there. But the landscape definitely has changed. There's more opportunities within the game. It's an international game, and there's a lot more leagues, so therefore it creates more jobs, which is fantastic. At the moment, we've seen that challenge with the current circumstances around the world with the coronavirus. But it's literally, I mean, my first opportunity was at Leicestershire County Cricket Club, and I spoke to Finchy about this. Finchy, someone I do bounce my sort of coaching off, and really sort of, he's actually good to talk to around coaching. He's pretty well versed. I know that I'm not meant to give him too many accolades on this program. Joe with me as the former captain, he said, make sure that you do not praise Finch, but I'm going to praise him in that space. But he sort of, that journey with me at Leicestershire, it was really a club. I mean, was it the right coaching job at the time? Who knows? But that opportunity is really, it's probably where I am today. So I'm thankful to Paul Hayward, who was the chairman of the board at the time, who gave me that opportunity as that coach. And everything sort of has transpired from there.
And as far as RPL goes, obviously you've got the Rajasthan job at the moment. Give us a little insight into sort of how that differs from, say, Leicestershire or even the Australian role.
The IPL's it's a different beast, really. I mean, you're in a country that cricket is bordering on a religion. It's fanatical. It's 2 months. It's the only competition that has its own window with all players from around the world available. So therefore, the quality of cricket is second to none. It literally is the best competition in the world domestically. That is international cricket. Is superior because you've got the talent sort of streamlines into the best teams in the world. But in terms of domestic competition, it far outweighs any other competition in the world. The travel, it's demanding. Turnaround times are short. As I said, the expectation on these players, the fans. You arrive at an airport, there's people at the front. You arrive at your hotel, there's people at the front. You go to the games, there's a massive queue out the front. It's just full of hype. It's a great. It's just a great tournament. It's really hard to describe unless you're there. But as I said earlier, it borders on religion. And the pressure is high, the stakes are high, and the demand for excellence is high. I was at not Rajasthan, I was at RCB at Bangalore, and I was first year into my contract there, had 2-year contract there, and we didn't perform that well, so we're out as a coaching unit. So the stakes are quite high, probably similar to EPL, I'd imagine.
How long beforehand do you go out there? How much time do you get to prep with a squad, or is it really hitting the ground running?
Yeah, it's really hitting the ground running with a lot of those tournaments. The availability of players because of the congestion in the scheduling is quite difficult. Look, you aim to get there potentially 2 weeks before, but that doesn't really transpire. The international players roll in potentially sort of 3 or 4 days before your first game. So the challenge of bringing a group together is different. As you said, I think you were mentioning before, if you've got a first-class team or an international team, you're working with that team day in, day out. So you understand your players, you build a relationship, you connect with them, and you're able then to probably make better decisions. So the ability to connect with your players in that short space of time is pivotal as a coach. And it's probably one of my philosophies as a coach is, the ability to connect before you coach is massive. And that's your great challenge because at the end of the day, you're in the people industry really as a coach. You're dealing with people. Whilst the cricket's important, if you can understand the person, I think you've got an opportunity then to help and impact the cricket side of things.
I was at, and by no means suggesting that Lancashire League is the same intensity and pressure as the RPL. But you mentioned earlier when you came back from your Victorian Emerging Players Tour, one of the things that a lot of the old pros always talk about is that pressure that pros are under when they're playing in the league, is that level of expectation day in, day out on a Saturday and Sunday that they have to perform. And you do get a lot of shit for it, don't you? It's not an easy thing. And just, is that something that the young international players don't experience anymore? And was that useful at all coming into this environment? And
yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's huge in your development as a player. It's the first time you get exposed to that pressure. It literally, you are the only overseas player. You're getting paid hypothetically. For you're getting paid Finchy, but hypothetically, the overseas doesn't pay more than the locals. So therefore, there is that added pressure of payment. And as a young kid, you feel that, and it's really the first time in your career that you do feel that sort of expectation that you have to deliver week in, week out. And I remember getting it wrong with the bat early at Lowerhouse. I think my first 5 games, I think I got 40 I got 40 against Accrington. I think Tama Canning was the professional there. And I thought, oh, okay, it's okay. I think it was my first hit or second hit, it might have been. And then I failed. And the ball was keeping me afloat in terms of everyone's perception of me as a player. But with the bat, I was really, really struggling. And I did feel that pressure. And there's no doubt that helped. That experience helped me later on in my cricketing career, but also helped me in my coaching career. So there's an element of that. I think that potentially with young players not exposing themselves to that early in their career, that makes all their development. But they'll get it somewhere along the line, won't they? That's I'll encounter that. But I'm definitely grateful, as I said earlier in the piece, that Brenda's gave me that phone call. I was able to trust him, and he had a good team. I was able to come in and help him contribute. But the relationships I formed through that journey, the knowledge that I was able to gain through that journey, has given me, no doubt, a head start on the rest of the field.
So, just again on Rajasthan, who are the names in that squad that we might know?
A few English players. So you've done your homework. It's good to see, Dutch. You always do your homework and you're well researched. Ben Stokes, you might know of him. Josh Butler, Jofra Archer, Tom Curran, Steve Smith. So they're probably the name overseas. Yeah. As the local, Robin Utapa as a local, Verona Ron. So we've got a fairly balanced side. We've got some really good international players, some really good local players, and hopefully, touch wood, it goes ahead this season. It's on hold at the moment, but we're hoping that at some point in time it'll go ahead this year.
Macca, just to Jez mentioned on one of the other podcasts his interest in kind of how stats and analytics are coming into the game, and obviously we've got a spreadsheet wizard in Joe Martin that goes through that. Just talk through some of the complexities that go into selecting squads for those types of teams, whether it be the 100 or the IPL, and what that looks like, because it's taken it to a different level, hasn't it?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Joe's take on it is as well. But yeah, it's definitely been beefed up. It's basically to help you in the decision-making process. It's not the be and end all, but the ability to look through the numbers, to look through the footage, to help you as a selection panel or list management panel make a decision on who potentially are the players going forward that are trending upwards, so to speak, in terms of your talented players, who are the older players that can help contribute, putting that together in terms of making a team. And that's the hard part. It's a bit like we've had many coaching conversations about putting a coaching team together. How do you put a team together? And there's a real art to that. And you guys would have experienced that. No matter what level you're at, you experience that. And you guys talk about 2004, things coming together, the team starting to look like it should. I think did Tiffa come in 2004 or 2005?
2004.
2004, you added Tiff in. So you started to value add these players. And there's no doubt that you guys would have went through a process to put them together to say, this is what potentially look like on the field. And we think if we put those pieces together, that will look like a championship winning team. So it's no different at any level. We've just got the ability to drill into it probably a little bit deeper than potentially the amateur level and even the first class level because you've got the resources available. So it's no different. It's probably just a little bit more thorough. But the game has gone to that analytic space. And I think for the better as well, if used correctly. It's really the art of being able to use the data correctly as opposed to just saying, we've got it there, let's use it. Well, what are you looking for, team in particular? Does Joe have anything to add on that as the? Oh,
if you want a horse, that's fine. We'll go with your schedule. That's fine. Joe, I was just going to ask you about the point on data there.
All right.
Would you like to mention anything there?
It's slightly different than Finch and Andrew in how I've done it. So I've done a little bit of work for Finch on cricket, but it's a bit more isolated in that I purely look at the statistics, send them to Finch, and then he does what he wants with them. But I think that it is a really useful tool for finding trends and patterns that help you, as you say, build a team and work out what you need. I don't think they are the full indicator of who you should pick and that sort of thing, but I think that they provide a good basis for you to direct your selections and where you want to take your team forward?
I think what it does, and certainly from my experience, what it does is you start to look at the Lowerhouse team as an example. And I always use Charlie as an example of how stats can skew or back up what you're trying to say. But Charlie's career average over a long period of time isn't that good. But if there's a player that you want to go in and bat for you and score some runs at the back end of the innings, or when you're in the shit, you want him to go in. So his average when he's playing against maybe the top teams or against some of the top spinners is much higher than certainly what mine would be or someone else's. And that's where you start to see the value of it. You compare, Blaise is different because he's a legend, but Blaise averages 45 against the best teams in the world. I'm in the league. I'm at average 35 against the bottom two teams that don't have a bowling pro. That's when you start to look at it, and that's when you say, actually, well, that player is of much higher value in this instance as the other. You know, if you're someone like me who's made a career of picking up 7, 8, 9 and 10 wickets at the back end of the innings, that's different to Johnny Russell, who takes 4 with a new rock at the front of the innings. So that's where I look on my career at Lowerhouse and look at it slightly different, having been exposed to that.
Whoever put the Lowerhouse team together would have had an eye to what they were trying to achieve in terms of a collective team, because there's no doubt that team had all bases covered when it come to being able to deliver performance. You had the spin, you had Johnny didn't play 2004 either, did he?
No.
So he 2004 with injury, and then he come back. He was almost like a special crew, new ball, was able to bowl as many overs up front as he possibly could. If it was dry, he had Tiffer. Finchy was able to wheel away uphill into the wind. He was able to control the run rate. So you had great dynamics, and then Matty Hope. You had Hopey, when things weren't going that well, he was able to pitch the ball up, get a bit of movement, and take valuable wickets. So you had a lot of bowling options. Batting was pretty good.
I hate to say this, but that was fluke. When that team coming together in the way it did, and you're absolutely right to talk about having all the bases covered, but that wasn't. There was no process there of sitting down and identifying a gap, and we need X type of player to fill that particular gap. That's just not how it worked. It was, he's a good player. He could add something to our team. Let's get him in, and then the pieces kind of fall together, and you make the best of what you've got in your lap. That was, I'm being brutally honest, that was how it was. It wasn't a case of we need potentially 30 wickets from a player, so let's go and identify that player. I don't think club cricket still to this day probably doesn't operate in such a professional way. There probably is room for it to, but I just think with a club like us, we were picking lads who were from our club. All right, we had a couple of extras that beefed us up a little bit, but they were recruited because they were good cricketers, not because they were a particular type of cricketer. When we were pulling them players to the club, we were taking them because they were good players, not because they fitted a gap that we had. That's just the way it was.
You're right in a certain to a certain degree, Dooch. But you can't get away from the fact, what Andrew's saying there is it's not an exact science as certainly in amateur cricket, we need someone to do this, let's go and find them. But in professional cricket, I'm sure that's what happens. But you think, Dooch, to the build-up, through the, and I know I can go back 80s and early 90s and then the late 90s, the fact that Matt, Charlie, Blaise was a little bit older, that was all developing, and I think it's probably a little bit unkind to say it was an absolute fluke. The fact that these people grew and, were nurtured, and I'm not suggesting by myself or Gary, but by some people that saw some benefit in it, and then away from the cricket side of it. Finchy playing at Nelson, getting Finchy, and I know Mac has championed Finchy a little bit already, but that was a real coup for us to get that. He was one of the first players that came in. You think, crikey, this lad, he can bat bowl, and he's not come through our junior system. So, and then Dave, God bless him, will be looking down on us, and he'll be loving these types of podcasts. And he could see things happening. He could say, right, we need to look at this professional. So, that's my views on it, Joe. I'm not wanting to do with you, but that's what I think about the way it developed.
The key thing, and we're getting a bit philosophical here, but the key thing because I found it quite hard coming into that dressing room, because I had no historical kind of stats to back me up. And you walk into a dressing room that's got Jez, Blaise, Matt Oak, Johnny was there the first year, I think. What that team never lost was the essence of what Lowerhouse Cricket Club was. And if anyone ever got out of position, people were shot down. So I was shot down a few times. Maka shot someone down, and we never lost that, because what was interesting was the likes of Jez was around in 2005. Gary, I remember you being around, and you understood what it was to play for Lowerhouse. And I think that's a key thing that we shouldn't forget in that, is that people, I don't know whether you have, Jez, but Matt's got a tattoo of Lowerhouse on his leg or something like that on him. And that's because he really cares about. Here we go. Jez is showing it us now. People care about it and have an emotional attachment, and that's something that we shouldn't forget, really. And it's something actually that I'm surprised you haven't mentioned my time when I went away for 3 or 4 games and came back down on my knees, cap in hand, trying to get a game back for Lowerhouse. When you leave it, you actually understand what that means. And I think that got us through a lot of that 2005 season as well.
Don't worry, Finch, that's going to be a special episode, that one.
The return of the prodigal son.
Johnny was still fairly new at that time as well, where the regulations had only been relaxed a few years back, where you had to live or work within a certain distance of the ground. So I think whereas some other clubs seem to manage to manufacture somebody having a paper round down on a street about 3.9 miles away. We never had that luxury, and I think that essence of Lowerhouse's culture and sort of tight knit sort of thing evolved quite naturally, quite organically. But I think it did all them in good stead when then the opportunity to bring players in who would clearly benefit the talent, the capability of the side. But it was almost, there were occasions, I think there were a few players who either made it known they would like to come and play at Lowerhouse, or we heard they were disgruntled at clubs. And I can think of people like Gary Hunt and Mark Aspin and people like that who were good players, good league players, and would qualify to play for us. But equally there were players who did come about who we thought, well, would they be more of a disruption, however good they are or whatever. So not to the extent Andrew was alluding to. That it was, a well put together art form, but it transitioned over a couple of periods of how you could register players, I think.
Andrew, I was just going to ask quickly about your Australian role as it is currently, and do you want to tell us what that is, what it involves, and how it came about?
Well, at the moment it's called stand down, so we're all on stand down at the moment, so we're not sure what it looks like for us. But essentially, senior assistant coach of the Australian team. How did it come about? Come about through a process. There's a couple of coaches have moved on. Justin Langer was looking for some new assistants to build his new team around him. I've been relatively successful at Victoria. Went through the process, and sort of was appointed to that role. So like many other sort of roles that you do get, you go through it, you sort of try to work out, is that the right place for you to be at that point in time? Is that the right opportunity to take at that point in time? And but it was good to step away from Victoria, take the opportunity at the international level, coupled in with the IPL role and the 100 role. So I felt like that was a fairly good mix as a coach, and probably unique really in the coaching landscape to be doing some international stuff along with some domestic stuff still. So felt like it was a really good opportunity, too good to refuse.
So nothing to do with the £4 million a year salary, or?
No, I've always worked for unders, and I did that at Lowerhouse, and
What does it involve? What? Obviously, Justin Langer's the main coach. I guess you are one of a number of assistant coaches. Do you focus on a particular area of the side? Is it more of a general view? How does it work?
I think as an assistant coach, you're there, to be the right-hand man for the senior coach, for him to bounce ideas off. I've got a bowling lead as well within the team, so take care of the bowlers. So yeah, like any coaching staff, you've got these titles and potential role, but as a working group, you work out what that looks like for you. Yeah, so you work out what your role as a team is. And you go about your work.
Gordon, send Morehouse to save the house. Come on, the house!
The role there, does it involve looking at opposition and analysing strengths and weaknesses there? Is that within your remit, or is that somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into the role. So yeah, you're going through the tactical stuff. You're talking to the physios and S&Cs around the physical preparation of bowlers, pretty much as a senior assistant coach across everything, but you're just not making the final decision. So it's an all-encompassing role with a bowling lead. So yeah, it's a great role. As I said, I haven't done an assistant role for a while. My last assistant role was with RCB in the IPL. So yeah, I really enjoy the assistant coaching role with Australia under Justin. And yeah, as I said, I'm fortunate enough to get that role on the back of some success with Victoria. Excellent,
thank you. Right, chaps, that's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned. Has anybody got any last bits and bobs for Andrew?
Oh, I've got a few things for you. Probably might have talked about it on a few other podcasts, but
I talk about it on every podcast. I shoehorn it into every single discussion that we have about cricket. My memory of it was the team was in dire need. We were struggling. We'd lost a lot of wickets. The pro was looking like he didn't know which end of the bat to hold at the other end, and somebody needed to win and take command of the situation. So, my one moment in the sun was when it was most needed. So, I'm quite proud of that. Thanks for bringing it up. Anything else?
What I will say about Lowerhouse, and I mean, you can cut and edit this in however you want, but it was a club. And I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity to play for a club. And it wasn't a group of individuals. It was a club on and off the field. It was a hell of a lot of fun. There was a social aspect to it, but there was also this huge desire to achieve on the back of 2004 when you guys won the cup. It was a group of individuals that were quite driven and knew that they had a window of opportunity for success, and they were able to take that. I think David Wren, no doubt, has been given the accolades that he deserves in terms of putting that together. But there was the team that went before, and Jesse was part of the team that went before. They went through a lot of heartache and pain, and Finchy sort of touched on it a little bit, but that probably built what was for us to take over. And I was only there for a short period of time, for sort of 5 months, and you guys were able to build on that and go forth. And you look at that moment, 2004, the belief that, okay, we can actually win something into 2005 and then beyond. I mean, the success from that point in time was huge, and it was great to watch from afar, personally. But to be able to be involved in that journey in such a small sample size was fantastic, and really grateful for the opportunity that Ranners gave me at the club. Not so much to play under you, Dooch, but that's another podcast for another time.
That's a great note to end on. Andrew, thanks very much for your time. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody else, as well. That's episode 10. Thank you.
Johnny Russell, pies.
All right, yeah, I'll just chuck that in as well.
Jesus.
So we once again we thank Johnny Russell from Art Caterers and Milltown Pies for his kind sponsorship of this podcast. There is a cost associated with getting the podcast on various forms, and Johnny helps a little bit with the cost. So if you've got any catering requirements at all, contact Johnny, Art Caterers, Milltown Pies. Have I missed anything else, Joe? Anything else?
Yeah, well, you have.
Yes, Jez.
You've not gone round any tests at the end saying, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah.
I mean, I had a quick question. This will be very quick for Mr. McDonald. Which professional or international captain would you compare Joe Beneducci to?
Not you can't say Ramesh Power.
He cops a lot of stick, and when you're at the top of your game and you put yourself out there like he did, Well, actually didn't, batting down at number 8. You do lend yourself to a bit of criticism here or there, but I think he did a reasonable job, to be honest.
Thank you. Thanks.
I think we can look back at it and critique it in detail, and the fact that he averaged probably 5 for the year we carried him, that's probably a different story. And he takes all the fucking accolades for the success of that team in 2005. Besides that, I think he did a wonderful job.
Right place, right time, I think is the phrase.
Who's that,
Who is it? David Boone?
Have we turned the record off this? We're not cutting and editing this, are we?
I have a feeling some of it might appear in.
We didn't go into Finchy enough, I don't think. I think we've probably got 5 minutes just to delve into Finchy's career. I mean, he's sort of was he part of the or something? Was he?
That can be episode 135. That's when we delve in proper into the depths of Lowerhouse.
What were his numbers that year? Can you give me something there, Joe? What were his numbers?
Yeah, absolutely.
We didn't go enough down memory lane, did we?
Let's have a look at Finch. Oh, the game I picked, he didn't play. I should have known, really. Season by season. So, 2005. Oh, Finch, well done. 627 runs at 27. High score of 80.
You actually got 120 though, didn't you, Finch? I mean, that's not fair, is it?
Well,
it is what it is. I'm obviously being a team player. All I bothered about was the 12 points in the reverse fixture.
Yeah.
Which I may or may have not got 5 for, I think, in that one.
You did, Finch. Yeah, well bowled. Yeah.
How many wickets did he get, Joe?
He took 43 wickets at 16. 7 for 46 was your best return, Finch.
Jack, after we'd won the league, I think you tried your hardest to try and get me to 50 wickets.
I did. Yeah,
you wickets at the back end.
Nah.
I think. Well, probably 3/4 of them are down to Jack McGregor.
Yeah, he was pretty special one in that year.
I've been lucky to have Jack and Joe throughout my career.
What did Ross take? He took high 30s, didn't he?
Yeah, but he took wickets. He took wickets at key moments, did Johnny. I know you've reminisced about the Rami game, but that was big.
Yeah, and then you had Tiff just chiming in, and you had Hopey chiming in when I just remember Hopey bowling like these 3 or 4 over spells. Just had the golden arm every time we sort of needed. So everything just went right, didn't it? Like every time we needed someone to chip in with the bat, with the ball, everything just gelled. And I think Vishal did he get 800 plus runs?
Yeah. I'll just have to go into Cricket Archive to find these ones.
Late 700s he got. And again, I think you might have talked about this on a previous. What about Shane Harwood? How good would it have been to see him bowl 12 overs down the hill at Burnley? We
had 300 under our belt, didn't we, that day? And he was bowling quick in the dark before the rain started. But yeah, that would have been fun. But then I think I know why you brought that up, because we played against him, didn't we, the year after or the year after that? And did you not get some runs against him? Is that why you brought it up?
No, that's not at all why I brought it up. But
I think it probably is.
Can't remember that day. Was Ryan pro that day?
Yes, you can. It's the highest ever partnership, wasn't it?
No, first wicket partnership.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
How many was it? 200 and what?
13 short, I think.
What's Jez's take on? So Jez played 2004, so he finishes up, and then he sees a team ready to go. What was your take on it? What was the difference? I mean, there was obviously 2004 you had that spike in the cut, but the years before, I mean, and did you believe that team going into round one as a former player and now a spectator on the other side of the fence having a jolly old good time, which was a fair bit more enjoyable than what we're doing out there on the field? Did you see a difference in going into round one? Was there an air of expectation, or?
I think expectation. We at Lowerhouse we don't do a lot of expectation. We see how things start, we see how we develop, and then move on from there. But I definitely saw, and that's why it's great to have Gary on. Gary was the start of. We had some professionals we spoke about the other night that came in that really started to try and change the club from being, we use the phrase Cinderella, use the phrase, underdogs. And these professionals were getting sick of it, and along with the likes of Gary and myself and other players, really from the mid-90s and onwards, that was changing. We won the league, we won the cup in 2004, and I didn't expect that, to be perfectly frank, but things went well for us. It was definitely time for me to finish. I was 41 then. You think that Dooch bowl you into the ground, you should have seen what Gary did to me. deadly serious. For many a weekend, it'd be 25 over Saturday, 25 over Sunday, and we'd play Bank Holiday Monday, and he'd ask me to bowl a few then.
What you're trying to say, Jez, is I underbowled myself.
But then, so we get 2005 Macca, and it's clearly a good side. You know, the little bit of homework and what we knew about you, you know, obviously being at Hasland the year before, you were certainly the right pro for us. Tiffer, quality player. Finchy's coming to his own, and that's with our own homegrown players. And I must admit, you know, Fischel's played very well. You know, his dad came into the side. We've had numerous discussions about that. I think we're all bored about that now. But it really looked a top, professionally ran outfit from the spectators' view. I watched loads and loads of games there that season. And I do, me and Gary just mentioned it earlier, I remember the first innings really quite well. But then after tea, it got a bit hazy, depending on hours and whatever went on in the afternoon, but you just didn't look like you were going to lose games that, you know, you were struggling. Certainly with the top side, someone would perform. And I was going to mention this at the end of the podcast if you would have asked me if there's anything I want to say. It really was a pleasure watching that season. You know, watching the players that came through, and then obviously yourself, Andrew, and how it's developed from there to where we are now. You know, it was an absolute pleasure to watch it and to talk about it now.
Yeah, it's a good summary. I mean, what happened to Jack McGregor? I mean, he was good that season as well, behind the stumps, because it was who kept the year before?
Oh, Charlie actually did it the year before.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was a gap, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a gap. Yeah,
Frankie did it in 2003, was it?
Frank did a bit in 2003. Yeah, Charlie did 2004.
Yeah, you're missing. Yeah, well, half a game.
But Jack was a bit of something different. Frank and Charlie, they'll admit themselves, you know, not the most natural of wicket keepers. Frank did it a hell of a lot more than Charlie did. But Charlie's an outstanding fielder. Jack McGregor was a proper wicket keeper, the first one that we'd had for a little while, and he did make a massive difference. Particularly stood up to the medium paces. He was something that we've not really seen since Chippy's days at the club. He was really, really good.
Yeah, so who got him there? Like little things like that where you look at the pieces that you might have thought about the strategy behind it, but you go, well, hang on, Charlie's good in the field, so we need a keeper. We go and get this 14-year-old kid who, you know, is growing and doesn't know his own limbs and look that uncoordinated, and then put a pair of gloves on him after the stumps. He looked so coordinated and was brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an element of can't be pot luck. There's an element of geez, that's come together pretty well.
That's true.
Pot luck.
I'm not buying it. I just can't.
Well, it's a multitude. It's a multitude of things coming together, isn't it? It's because you had it was Chappie at Day Cup, so he was never really going to get a gig there for a good few years. I think Jack. I knew Jack beforehand, as did Bembers, as did a couple of others, and things like that just fell into place. That he was looking for somewhere to go. You had that feeling around the league that Stan was doing something with the juniors, and it really fitted in. It was an opportunity that he could come in. So yeah, it was a multitude of things that come together. But geez, that was probably as big a signing as some of the others during that period with what he did behind the stumps, and he got it. I think he. You know, you'd have to look through the cards, but he probably got us a couple of wickets a game with what he did.
Yeah, definitely. But in terms of I like what I was saying earlier, it wasn't a process of this is our side. We desperately need a wicket keeper. Let's approach Bacup to see if we can have Jack. That's not how it worked. It was Jack, like Finchy said, was looking for something else because his opportunities were limited. It just so happened that we were in the right place at the right time. He comes to Lowerhouse, and he's an absolute revelation. But that could quite easily have not happened, and then we'd have gone into that season with Charlie behind the stumps. It wasn't a case of the brains trust at Lowerhouse sitting down and identifying him as something that would make us better. It was a little bit pot luck.
It was, but don't underestimate. 10 years ago, before that, he wouldn't have come.
No, correct.
So the journey that you've gone through, he's willing to take that leap of faith, isn't he?
Well, you can see a place moving somewhere, and that's what I was sort of alluding to with Jez. Like there would have been moments where you're sitting there thinking, "Geez, we're not going anywhere here. Like we're stagnant. What does it look like for us? We need." And you probably went back to the junior development, which is the whole thing about standing and all that. And you invested in the youth, and they started to come through, and you got this perfect mix. And the ability for, Jez to see the moment. Like I know this sounds funny, but if a senior player hangs on 1 year too long, that stalls another opportunity for a younger player to come through and getting that right. I'm not saying Jez's position in particular, but the ability for those players to build something, step away, and then watch it grow. And I assume that Matty had the same discussion. What's the right time to go? Do I play 1 year? Do I go? If you get them right, then you've got sustained success, which is really the challenge. But the House were able to do that. So full credit through that journey.
Talk about senior players potentially going on a season too long. Jez, how many wickets did you get in 2004?
We had this the other day, didn't we? Did I get 21 or something?
Eight, something like that.
Oh, hold on.
What happened in my day?
There we go, Steph, man.
Jez, you got 12 wickets.
12 wickets.
Yeah, 43.
Yeah.
They were important ones, though.
They were important ones, and I will also say I was coming on at the very, very important times. They brought another amateur in who played 1 year and then knocked off. They were difficult times, Joe. But I suppose we mentioned your 50. You won't my 60, will you?
Andrew, his batting stats were even more impressive. He scored 4 runs, 7 innings. Sorry, Jez. You've helped me a lot, and I feel like I'm really throwing you under the bus here. But I just thought it was necessary for context.
Throwing him straight under the bus, mate. Don't feel like you have. You've thrown him under the bus. The batting was never mentioned.
But Jez, if you'd have only taken 1 wicket in 2004, it would have been enough, right?
Mustafa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was that in the final? Was it?
Yeah, in the final. He got the pro out in the final. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I remember a moment. So we played against Haslingden in the cup. I think we played them early on in the cup, and we got knocked out. I've never gone into a. It was at home, wasn't it? I've never gone into a change room and seen a more mortified group, and I thought, geez, this is real. Everyone dislikes Haslingden to a different level. It was a moment where I went, geez, this rivalry is real. And they've got their rivalry with Ramy as well, haven't they? But yeah, Hazzy with the team clearly that no one liked.
Yeah. Their captain before that game, I remember having a conversation with their captain about how we were going in the league, and how do you think it's going to go? Are you confident? And I was quite bullish, and he made some disparaging comment about, well, your pro's going away for a month. And he probably won't come back, and if he does come back, you don't know what shape he's going to be in. He was like really, really brutally hard, and obviously that was because you played there the year before and it had not really worked out.
Well, you'd faked a back injury to leave, hadn't you? From what I remember.
No, I slipped at East Lancs, and my back went bang, and I played the next 3 games, which is the worst thing I could possibly do. And I was like, I cannot move. And Ingers was really, really good, and I, to this day, thank him for that. Dasher was really, really good, and they were the 2 that I've stayed in contact with through, because they were just like, well, you're injured, it's okay, we'll get you back. But yeah, the rest were quite demanding on what the professional needed. That's where you guys had a different take on it. It was literally the professional was a contributor to the team, not the person that was demanded to win games. Although some of the supporters didn't think that. But the team, when you went into the change room, I remember, as I said, I was struggling with the bat early. I was sat next to Finch, and I think it was Charlie as well. And they're like, it's okay, like, we're backing you in. And that was the best thing ever, that just a couple of teammates were backing you in, no matter what the other people think on the outside. Because it is. It's from what Haslingden sort of demanded of me to what Lowerhouse demanded, it was more team versus you're the pro, you're a good ball. And yeah, it definitely, as a you're talking about young kids as well. I mean, it's 2005, I'm 23 years of age.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're a grown, seasoned professional. Like, you got the tag of professional, but you're a young kid making your way in the game, and you don't really understand your own game, yet you're expected to continue to perform week in, week out. So it's a huge challenge.
Macca, thanks again. Really appreciate
it. Great, boys.
And thanks everybody else. And
cheers. Thanks
speak to you all soon.